On today's try to... I have no idea why I waved. On today's try to finish something, if you watched my last podcast, you know that I've been in the middle of a real budgeted project, and it is thrilling, and I've been having to do some things that are outside of my comfort level. I've been having to do speed builds, and I'm slightly anal retentive when it comes to the details of a project that I'm working on, but I've been having to find ways to have that same attention to detail, but to do it quicker. And I've had to make some props where from the director, he says, hey, I'd like this on set tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. And it's 4 p.m. And I'll rush home, I'll make props, and I've actually been painting it sometimes with like a brown spray paint and a black in each separate hand and painting at the same time so that I can still give something a weathered look but do it quicker. And it's been crazy and amazing. I was made the art director. Yes, the art director for this project. And it's thrilling. And I didn't want this to take away from things that I was already working on. And in the Star Wars Facebook nerd group, there's the challenge. It's the Andor panel challenge, and I wasn't clear exactly what you were supposed to be doing, whether it was a panel inspired by Andor, which is kind of what I've seen from some of the builds that have been posted, or if it was to take a panel that was actually seen in Andor and to recreate that panel exactly. That one seemed harder. So that's the one I decided to do. And I was kind of wavering back and forth on whether or not I was going to do it. And a little bit about my childhood. I didn't have the easiest childhood. I watched a lot of television. We moved a lot. And TV, the magic flickering box, was my only friend at times. And I watched everything on TV, whether it was Bewitched or Brady Bunch or game shows. I watched it all. And until I was in about 6th grade, I thought I wanted to be a game show host. I actually still wouldn't mind being a game show host, but that's a whole different story. But when they were in Cyril's house and they were watching the television, there was a panel that was beside the TV. When I saw that, Andor, panel, and TV, I knew I was in, and that was the panel that I wanted to make. And I'm going to come up with my own storyline for why this panel is outside of Cyril's house. Because I'm insane when it comes to overly complicated stories. But an Andor panel for the Star Wars Build Group Andor Panel Challenge, that's what I'm going to do on today's Try to Finish Something. So here it is, the panel that I drew out and created in Adobe Illustrator, bringing my love of TV and Star Wars together as they were always meant to be. And here's the panel that I paused on my TV. It's sideways, and I took this picture with my phone. And in case you think that I've gotten so good doing all of this designing here in Adobe Illustrator that I was able to do this in one try, yeah, no. I got smarter. Instead of printing out these full failures after failure after failure, I started cutting out specific parts of it to see if my greeblies would fit in. Ooh, and this failure right here, this is because I forgot to tell the Glowforge to score around those bottom rectangles, and I had it on cutout instead. And I found out that some LEDs are slightly different size, and I couldn't get the LED holes just right, so I took a scrap piece and I cut out barely different sized holes until I found just the right size so that I could have these be a press fit. Greeblies. Now, I do a lot of shopping in hardware stores, especially like the plumbing section, looking for interesting items and stuff that, in this case, look like the picture. And I buy tons of random greeblies. And my wife, she loves it. No. Oh, and these switches here, these are duck build switches. In the picture, they are black, but they have silver scratches, so I assumed that they were actually painted, and I was only able to buy silver since I couldn't find black. Yeah, long story. But I got screwed by the first guy that I tried to buy these from, and I did have a good experience with the second seller, and I will put a link in the description if you would like to buy these as well. And notice these pictures are better. Having great reference photos are a key to trying to recreate something, and Rod from the Star Wars Nerd Group posted some great pictures in the group, and they are definitely going to help me a lot. And I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to paint this. I made it so that I had some scored masking, but that only works really if you have 2 colors, and I have 3, so it is going to be a pain. Okay, everything exposed is going to be my white-ish color. In this photo from the television, it does look bluer than it really is. I do think there is a little bit of blue, but I think it's more off-white. So here is what I did. I painted the entire thing light blue, and I kept dusting it with off-white until there was just a hint of blue coming through underneath. I almost never paint with just one color because of shadows and wear. Most real-world items aren't a single color. And when I used to watch the Face Off show on the Sci-Fi Channel, they always talked about skin tones having so many other colors layered in. When I paint real-world items the exact same way. If there's any interest, I may do a video on painting like that. If you're interested, just let me know down below. Okay, now the parts that are going to be the orangish brown, I'm pulling the masking off and exposing the parts that will be that color. And I still don't have a great plan. I feel like I should just hand paint them, but I'm going to try an idea. I'm taking the paper off of a failed version. I'm going to try and reuse that as a mask. It has, I don't know, a tiny bit of stick to the back of it, and it might work with a little bit of masking tape. I will go around and do that for all of the brown parts. My plan is to paint the orange-brown with an airbrush because I don't have that color of spray paint available, at least not close enough to what I want. I'm going to mix my own color of paint and then dust it with a darker color to get exactly what I'm looking for. And I'm fairly new to the airbrush, and I'm not sure how this is going to work. But like I always say, it is just paint and you can always repaint it. And I'm just mixing 2 different shades of brown and an orange to try and get the color that I want. I will also dust it with straight brown to add a little bit of shading. And as you can see, the mask isn't really sticking the way I wanted it to. I think when I'm done, I'm going to be retouching this anyway, and I've just about covered the entire thing in masking tape. I also see that I have masked out perfect circles on my fingers because I'm just not that bright. Now, I am going to do a quick cleaning of my airbrush. Like I said, I am very new to the airbrush, but everything that I've read said you have to be very vigilant about cleaning them. So let's just fast forward through this. I doubt any of you care to watch me clean it. Here we are, the unmasking. It's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. There's a bit of a misty bleed through of the brown, and some of the edges aren't super clean, and I'll fix that up. But I'm going to pull off the final black mask, and then I'm going to do some touch-up. Of course, for anyone interested, I will add these files to my Facebook group, Try to Finish Something, for free if anyone would like to make one of these on their own. All you've got to do is join the group and find them up in the files section, the Greeblies. All right. If you're going to make one, you will need Greeblies, and I will get to the Greeblies in just a minute. But most of this is just laser cut. And while I have that brown out, I will touch up a few of the brown spots, and then I will blend some white and a touch of blue to clean up those edges as well. And as I mentioned, the duck build switches only came in silver, so I mounted them to a failed print and shot them outside with spray paint. I don't care if they get a little scratched up taking them off because you can actually see silver scratches in the one in the Andor series. So that gets me to the knobs. Now, my wife's dad used to make these testers for a living that would test LEDs, and they had these little adjustment knobs. And when he passed away, my mother-in-law had a collection of stuff that he had in his office and asked if I wanted to
use some of the stuff for any of the builds and things that I was making. And when I saw those knobs on the Andor series, I saw that they were controlling the TV, and I knew that this was finally the time to use them. And they're an exact match. And I'm just trying to figure out the rest of the greeblies. I'm basically using a cut piece of acrylic as the washer at the bottom that I will paint silver, and then using some random plumbing faucet piece that I found at Home Depot as the greebly that the LED will fit inside. I found this one bigger one and then two smaller ones that will go over there on the left side. I think they're all the same piece, and I have no idea what they are really used for. On the package it says chrome faucet seats. I have absolutely no idea what they are, but I like the way they accentuate an LED. I put that inside the hole that I cut. I cut a same size hole spacer on the back, and then a third one that has an LED sized hole, and then glue it all together. Just like that. And then I have a fancy chrome round greebly with an LED inside. And I just need to super glue these together for my fancy greebly sandwich. Greebly sandwich. All right, so the duct milled switches should be dry enough. The two round greeblies at the bottom look like simple round discs, so I just cut them out on the Glowforge and then tape them down to take them outside and paint silver. Okay, I do want to add some weathering. Cyril's mom's house was organized, but everything had a dated, older look to it. You know, like my grandma's house. You've all been there. I figured it would be a little dingy but clean because she tried her best to keep up appearances even though she wasn't well off. So I wanted to add a little bit of grime and wear, but to try and not go too far, like I usually do. Places where knobs were turned and things were handled would get the most stained. And I wanted it subtle, but I definitely wanted some weathering there. Now, for the knob posts, I was able to grind down some pieces from the old telephone operator cord board that I dismantled almost a year ago and used those to mount the knobs so that they were actually able to turn. Just attach them with the built-in Allen screw and perfect. It even turns. I just need to grind down two more of these. Now, it's wiring time, and this is going to be a mess. There are a lot of wires in a really small place, and I assume the professional thing to do would be to shorten them all and work from there so that it looks clean in the end. But I always wind up running into some sort of an issue, and then I regret that I cut the wires too short, so I'm just going to leave them long and start putting this all together. I want different wires to be controlled by different switches so that all the switches do something and they work. Now, while I work on that, I'm going to tell you my dark story for this panel that I actually just came up with. All right, we all agree that Andor has more of a gritty spy type of feel than your typical Star Wars show, so here is my idea for this innocent panel that Cyril is so familiar with. And this could be some sort of a major plot spoiler for Season 2 of Andor, and if it is, I promise I wasn't privy to any inside information. All right, here it goes. Andor snaps. He's tired of Cyril's constant attention, and he wants to send him a message, one that he can't ignore. Andor makes his way back to Cyril's mother's house, and he offs her. And to make sure that the message is loud and clear, he blows the place up and sends a piece of his childhood home back to Cyril. And then he puts a dewback head in Cyril's bed. I don't know. I'm sorry. Again, it's another tangent, and I probably should have just kept that in my head. All right, the last thing is just the heat shrink tubing on the exposed wires, and it's time to test this thing out. And look at that. It works. I'm going to double down on my dumb. This is one of the freeway props that I made late one night for the production shoot that I was on. It's still stained with a little bit of blood from the shot, and it's just the pink insulation foam. And I have some extra chunks of it that I'm just cutting with a hot knife. And I have that wire cutter too, which I actually like the edges better, but this is faster. I'm just cutting this up, and then I'm hitting it with a few colors of spray paint close up to try and melt the foam to give it some texture. Now I'm just dabbing on some color to bring out the rough edges and the cracks. It's just brown, black, and gray acrylic paints. Now, adding a few drips, and you see that hole. I'm sure most of you have figured out what I meant by I'm doubling down on my dumb. Yep, I am making the chunk of wall that Cyril will receive in Season 2 to display my panel. Now, yeah, I know it's not going to happen, but if it does, this better be the most watched video in the history of the internet. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like, subscribe, and consider joining my Patreon group, or grabbing something off my Amazon wish list pinned to the comments and in the description. Ooh, I have to add shrink tubing to that list, and I want to thank everyone for the support of this channel, and if you didn't like it, as always, just keep it to yourself, and we'll see you next time as we try to finish something. Don't forget, glamour shots are up next.